What is going down, Sourdough Squad? How are we doing today on this beautiful Friday ahead of the Super Bowl coming up between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams coming on up? Good to see everyone dropping in the chat. We see the SDS gang vibing per usual. Let's go. We see the squad dropping SDS in the chat. If you vibing with your boy, don't forget to smash that like button because we got some snubbery to talk about right now. Oh, goodness gracious. We got some big old snubbery going on around our parts. And of course, if you aren't familiar or aren't aware, the NFL held their prestigious award show, the NFL Honors, last night. And as a result, the 49ers had a lot of really good players. At one point, Deebo Samuel was being talked about as a potential MVP candidate. At a certain point, it really felt like Nick Bosa was making a path forward for the comeback player of the year. Hell, maybe even to be discussed as the defensive player of the year. I mean, at least in the conversation, right? Patrick Willis was coming up for as a finalist, as a Hall of Fame potential inductee, and of course Kyle Shanahan. Now we understand, probably not going to get the popular vote there, but for what Kyle Shanahan did with the 3 and 5 year, I'm just saying. But anyways, what we're gonna really look at, man, is we're gonna look at some of the snubbery. And with perfect timing, Nick Bosa responded to the snubbery. So we're gonna look into it. Yeah, exactly. Don't forget Eric Armstead also for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He was up for that. So we're gonna take a look at it because we have Nick Bosa has commented on it clearly, and it's perfect timing because we're going to come on and talk about this episode. I did forget to add Josh Norman. How dare I? But we set the episode and we're going to talk about it, but with perfect timing, Nick Bosa decided to throw his 2 cents into the mix, and I like it. I really like it. I'm glad Nick Bosa said something, because if you look across the league and you especially look across 49ers fans, there was some I was upset, I'll be honest. And I have no skin in the game. I gain nothing from Nick Bosa getting a vote for comeback player of the year. Like, literally, there's nothing. But the fact that there are people in the NFL who are in charge of voting, and Nick Bosa didn't get one vote. Again, one vote. Now, if he got a couple votes, I would imagine that the outpouring of support for Nick Bosa wouldn't be the same hit. But I think the fact that Nick Bosa was able to incur 15 and a half sacks coming off a torn ACL. He led the league in tackle for losses. He was the most double-teamed defensive end and or defensive lineman in the entire NFL in 2021. Coming off an ACL injury and a guy who plays in the trenches. Dirt in the ground. He's not a stand-up outside linebacker. He's a hand in the dirt defensive end, constantly getting double-teamed, chipped, all of it. Triple-teamed at times. We've seen multiple occasions where Nick Bosa got triple-teamed. Now, I think we can all rationalize that TJ Watt getting the defensive player of the year. What TJ Watt was able to do this year, the amount of sack production, and again, that's the shiny stat that really helps you gain traction for this award. But just the simple fact that Nick Bosa didn't get a singular vote for comeback player of the year. Derwin James got a vote, and no disrespect to Derwin James. I think Derwin James is one of the best players in the NFL. And he was coming back from an injury. But, I mean, come on, guys. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Not a single vote? I'm just beside myself. And, a lot of fans were too. I mean, you even got right here, you got the 49ers. He's been their photographer, I think, for over 25 years now. This is what he had to say. He said, "That's some bull poop. No vote. Crazy. They are haters." That's kind of the vibe. It just, not even a sack. Like, not even a vote. Just one vote. And right after that, this is what I posted. When I saw the snubbery, they were like, okay, we're focused now. I'm focused for Bosa. I want to help push the energy in the right direction. And if that's going to be the vibe from the NFL community, NFL honors, and the people who vote for these things, then screw comeback player of the year. We're going straight to defensive player of the year in 2022. That's the vibe. But what's really funny about it too is Nick Bosa. We got some feedback from Nick Bosa on this. He posted to his Instagram story. Shout out HT 49ers Global. He reposted 49ers Global post on Instagram showing the voting. Also, you could see he went out of his way to show the caption that includes completely disrespectful. And from Nick Bosa, you just get the smiley emoji. And I think we know what that means. If Nick Bosa didn't care, if Nick Bosa could care less about a vote, he wouldn't have posted this. He wouldn't. He doesn't post often. We have our brand on Instagram, obviously. Very strong on Instagram, and we do a lot of social reporting on Instagram. So we have pretty good tabs on when and how these players post, the trends in which they post, frequency, time. Nick Bosa isn't a big poster. He doesn't post a lot. And for him to go out of his way to drop an emoji and, again, show the caption. You have the opportunity to hide the caption. He could have just showed the picture with the votes. No, he wanted to he's not going to say it. But he let Global speak for him. And I love it. Like, we already knew Nick Bosa was going to be 100% he was a candidate. But to be like actually featured in the running, you got to get a vote. He didn't get a vote. So, like, I was watching the highlight of them talking about comeback player of the year. They're running, the Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, and then it went back to Joe Burrow, and I'm like, where's Nick Bosa? I was like, are they really not going to show a Nick Bosa highlight reel for comeback player of the year? The reason they didn't is because he didn't get a vote. They also omitted Derwin James, who got the singular vote. But, I mean, tragedy. Absolutely tragedy. But on the flip side, and also I would say the bright side for 49er fans and, fans that have a rooted interest in Nick Bosa being successful, clearly he's seen it and clearly he has a message for it. And I think we can all agree that Kyle Shanahan in this photo just really represents what we're feeling like today. Just like, okay, that's fine. Shout out the Sourdough Squad. Look at the homies dropping in. We see you guys. Smash that like button. You know the vibes. I hope you guys are having a great Friday. I'm having a great Friday as well. And I agree with this part of it. It's like, I don't argue as well Burrow and Dak being deserving of it. Like, I agree that that's fine. You want to give the quarterback the position that all fans, all media watch the most. One of the quarterbacks is in the Super Bowl. That's pretty special to tear your ACL. And again, I've done a study and trends on quarterbacks who have torn their ACL and or severe leg injuries and how they come back. It's not the same. Not all these quarterbacks bounce back right away. Again, you can look at Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, Tannehill, RG3. The list, you had Joe Burrow to the list, Dak Prescott, like the list of quarterbacks, Tom Brady, that have had severe leg injuries and came back. Derek Carr was playing at the peak, of his career when he got his injury. Same with Marcus Mariota. And those two, I don't think they've came fully back. Tannehill took some time to come back from his ACL injury. So it is hard. So I do give the credit. I do give credit to Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott for being able to have great years on the back of two devastating injuries for each player. So that is not the talking point. I tip my cap to Burrow. I imagined he was going to win it. Again, it's pretty special to be able to lead your team in your second year to the Super Bowl with no offensive line, and you're coming off a severe leg injury. That's pretty special. So that's okay. I don't have no problems with that. I have problems with Nick Bosa not getting a vote. Like, what? How are you not going to give Nick Bosa a vote? And okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's fine with Nick. Does it really impact Nick? Probably not. Like, in the sense of like, oh, I'm real upset. But it's, again, when you got everyone talking about you, when your name's in everyone else's mouth, we're talking about him right now. There's got to be some motivating factor there. Just, again, we all have chips on our shoulders through things that we've gone through in our lives, adversity, people who've talked trash to us, whatever. We take those chips and we stack them on our shoulder. Doesn't necessarily mean this is a huge chip, but it's just another little crumb to add on to the shoulder of, I got something to prove to you guys. So I like it. I think it's good. I like it. Again, I didn't think he was going to win it anyways. So I like the fact that we actually got some motivation out of it. Some other snubs. This too, insanely feels disrespectful. How does Deebo Samuel not get a singular vote for Offensive Player of the Year? The dude practically created a new position on the offense. If anyone, well, we all watched, the 49ers offense and how it had to mature through the 2022 season. It wasn't a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination. And Deebo Samuel really had to come in and develop this role that we've never seen before. The ability to stretch the field as a wide receiver, but then to also come in and literally play running back, play after play after play, and be very successful at it. Accumulate, I think, over 2,000 all-purpose yards. He was our offense for a stretch there. No vote? I'm just saying. And it's like, okay, Aaron Rodgers wins MVP. Like, why does Aaron Rodgers have 2 votes for Offensive Player of the Year, but he wins MVP? It's just like, what the hell are we doing, man? Who votes for these things? Who votes for these things? I'm just saying. Again, stack the chip, put it on the shoulder. No recognition for the 49ers in the award show, really. Pretty much everyone got a snub. This one to me is on par with Bosa. Like, how do we not get a Deebo Samuel vote? How? Like, again, the importance, Offensive Player of the Year, Deebo was the 49ers offense for a good portion of time. That went to the NFC Championship and almost won and moved on to the Super Bowl. I see people talking about the Lance interview. Oh wait, that's not it. It was a great interview, by the way. Shout out to Niners Nation. If you go over to Niner Nation's YouTube, at risk of you guys leaving the stream, that's fine. It's a great interview. Niner Nation, they posted with stats with Rob. Rob's really freaking good at interviews, man. Rob is really good at interviews. So if you want to go over there, Rob interviewed Trey Lance. It's a great interview. Definitely watch it. We could talk about that too. So we'll talk about the interview. If you haven't watched it, I'm going to talk about we'll talk about the interview. We can talk. I might even pull it up. We could maybe pull it up, snippets of it. But we'll talk about it. We'll definitely talk about it. This one to me was interesting. Now I get it. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and bang the table and say Kyle Shanahan should have been coach of the year. But again, he did what he did this year. I have to be able to give this man credit for being able to take a team that lost 4 games in a row at the early portion of the year with the injuries they had on offense, retool the offense, completely change it to match their personnel, and then get the offense going and then get into the playoffs how they did to make to the NFC Championship. I mean, that is pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. Mike Vrabel got 36 votes. Why does Zach Taylor only have 2 votes? How is Mike Vrabel why? Because he didn't have Derrick Henry all year? Like what? Why does Mike Vrabel the coach of the year? Now, and not to disrespect Mike Vrabel either. I think Mike Vrabel is one of the better coaches in the NFL. I think he's great. I love Mike. He's a former player, and clearly he gets it. He knows how to do his job at a very high level. But Zach Taylor got 2 votes. The Raiders head coach, interim head coach, got more votes than Zach Taylor. The guy in his second season with a completely young roster, no offensive line, and has taken them to the Super Bowl. He gets 2 votes. And the interim head coach of the Raiders gets 3 votes. Like, what? Who votes for these things? I think I saw someone say it like, these votes we need to know who votes. Like, there needs to be some level of accountability. Like, it should be public, to be honest. Like, we should know who you voted for. If you have a vote, we should know who you voted for, so that we can then hold you accountable and hold your feet to the fire when you make a weird vote and we were like, hey, we need an explanation on why the Raiders interim head coach got more votes than the guy who led an extremely young roster to the Super Bowl. I don't know. I find that weird. Again, no votes for Shanny. I'm not saying Shanny should have won coach of the year, but he had I hold Shanahan's 2021 coaching performance in high regard, not because it was perfect and not because it was clean, because it was dirty, it was muddy, it was ugly. Like, it was so ugly early. And the backlash and the turmoil and the calling for his head and like straight up toxicity surrounding Shanahan. Bro, you can just pack it away. Some people, again, fight or flight, basic human instinct. You either fight or you're just like, screw it. Like, the bet has been made. There's no turning back. We've lost 4 games in a row. We're We don't have the personnel to run the offense that we wanted to run going into the year. It wasn't working. No Mostert. Lost Elijah Mitchell early too. No running backs on a run-first team. So I give him so much credit for, again, we will look at the first part of the year and be like, man, you kind of made your bed there a little bit. You kind of made your bed there a little bit. I'm not going to sit here and say Kyle Shanahan had no part in the dysfunction of the San Francisco 49ers early. I think he was a big part of that. I think the quarterback situation was a underlying theme of the kind of disjointed nature of the team. And that kind of stuff. But I give him all the credit in the world for correcting it mid-year, getting the train back on the tracks, putting the belief into Jimmy Garoppolo, because it wasn't there early. He reinstilled it into Jimmy, and the team rallied. And that doesn't happen without strong leadership. That doesn't happen without coaching. I thought this was great from George Kittle. George Kittle said this at the Pro Bowl to Matt LaFleur, but what he said was, you're either coaching it, or you're allowing it to happen. And I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was beautiful. And also, just to FYI, if you're going to bring politics into the chat, that's an insta block. I'm going to give you a warning right now. This is football. We're here to talk about sports. We are not going to drag in political nature into these conversations. So if you would like to, then I'm going to have to escort you out the chat. So just first and final warning, just a heads up. And so as we continue to kind of move through the entire situation, it's just I think Shanny did a great job. I think Shanny did a great job in how he was able to get everything moving in the right direction. And he deserves credit for that. Just like he deserved credit for kind of the rough start, he also deserves credit for getting this team to the NFC Championship, man. Beautiful. Gotta love it. So shout out Kyle. I appreciate it. I appreciate what he did. But yeah, it's just it was an interesting situation. Now, of course, we're going to talk about a positive that came out of it. Oh, tell him, boy. Hit that like button and go crazy. We did get a Hall of Famer. So shout out 49ers legend, Bryant Young, BY, savage. Absolute savage. Good to see at least some good thing come out of that stupid award show last night. But shout out to BY, man. Very, very deserving player. Again, he is a cornerstone 49er legend. And I'm very happy that we got him in because he's very deserving. If you listen to guys like Joe Staley, they speak about this man in the utmost highest regard. So very, very happy for good old Bryant Young. So some of the accolades for Bryant Young, 1999, he was the NFL AP Comeback Player of the Year. We've been talking about that, right? We've been talking about the Comeback Player of the Year. He was the AP Comeback Player of the Year. He was also the Pro Football Writers Association Comeback Player of the Year in 1999. And when he came into the league, he made it as he was on the NFL All Rookie team in 1994. He was in 1996 AP Defensive Player of the Year. And he made 4 Pro Bowls, one-time All-Pro. So he had a great career. And as a defensive tackle, man, gotta love it. Got to love it. Really, really like it. He ranks 57th overall in the NFL since 1982. Since they've been tracking sacks with 89.5. But again, very deserving for BY. Very, very deserving. But I would be remiss, and I do want to give BY some time and let it marinate and give him his credit and his flowers because he deserves it. He again, I'm not like so 96, when BY's out here balling. I'm 7 years old. I know BY. I've went back and watched BY. I've gone back and watched the historical archives of BY. I know who BY is. I remember, I watched 49ers games back then. I didn't watch them like I did now. And I remember his impact then, but I'm going to keep it honest. I was 7 years old when this dude was tearing up the NFL. So I'm just overall very happy for BY. Glad he was able to get in. He deserves it, man. And if you know anything about the 49ers, it's really hard to talk about 49ers, great 49ers, without talking about BY, man. BY is a legend. And anyone who's ever played against him says the same exact things. So shout out to BY. But he wasn't the only one available. He wasn't the only guy that was up for the Hall of Fame. They also had, I think, for one of the I don't know. Would you say, Patrick? Let's poll the chat. Let's do our first poll chat of the day. This is a tough one. I don't know. We'll see. Let's do it in 2 steps. So it's going to be a 2-parter poll question for the chat. Chat better be ready. Is Patrick Willis, we'll start with this. Is Patrick Willis a top 5 49er all time? There are great 49ers. But I want to see what the chat says. And we're gonna work through this. But let's start there. Is Patrick Willis a top 5 all-time 49er? I want to see what the chat says. And again, no pandering. If you don't believe he is, that's okay. That's because there's so many good I got 2 GOATs right behind me. I got GOAT. I got right here. There's Frank Gore, Vernon Davis, Kaepernick. We got GOATs. We got GOATs everywhere in this franchise. But I do want to see what we're thinking. Let's see. Jimmo says not for Willis. Still some greats that. Oh, this is. Here we go. Yes, top 5 49er. Funky, yeah, P. Willie. Top 5. Just Alex says no, not top 5. Jago Crazy says yes. Ed says no. The Jedi says yes. No top 10, no. Yes. Jimmo says not top 5, but he is the best linebacker. Okay. Yes. Not enough time. Yes. Dylan's doesn't really know about 5, which is fair. Kentra says I'll put him at 5, if not 6. No. Cap says top 8. Yeah. From Terrence. No from Titan. Raymond says no. Patrick Willis is Leonidas from 300. Is he lead the group of 300 against Xerxes, and although he puts up an admirable fight, ultimately falls in the end. Sir Juju says top 10 for sure. Jesus says top 5. I don't know about that. Best Niner I've ever seen since Rice. Ooh, that is some high praise from Rogers. Let's go. Okay. So then this is the next part. And I think we're probably going to agree on this one. Is Patrick Willis a top 5, or excuse me, we just did that. Is Patrick Willis a top 10 49er of all time? So top 5 again, studs everywhere. Joe Montana. You got guys like Dwight Clark. You got Jesse Sapolu. You got Ronnie Lott. Like, you got legends. So I think the conversation that we always come back to, right, is if Patrick Willis played longer and we got him that ring and we got him that Super Bowl, yeah, we'll probably feel pretty confident talking about Patrick Willis, as a top 5 guy. But we know injuries derailed the career a little bit, and there's just so many good we're so blessed as 49er fans to just have quality talent throughout our years. Decades and decades and decades of some of the greatest players to ever play. Again, can't even forget. Didn't even mention Charles Haley. Charles Haley's a savage. Jimbo says too many. So back to the original question. Is Patrick Willis a top 10 all-time 49er? Vince says yes. 49ers amateur rookie scout says yes. Jesus says yes. Yes. So I think this is an appropriate fitting. Yeah, I agree. So as we can see in the chat agrees. The chat agrees. Patrick Willis is a top 10 49er of all time. Randy Cross, legend. The Jedi said he's 5th to me. Mandatory top 10 for sure. HI says yes, he held it down. Held down his position even with the turf toe injury. Merton Hanks, can't forget Merton Hanks, man. Stud for sure. Let's see. Ooh, we got lists dropping in. I like the list. Feel free to drop your top 10 list, top 5, top 10, whatever you want. I don't mind seeing that. Cadillac Pete says number 1 Montana, number 2 Rice. I didn't even say Steve Young. Blasphemy on my part. Number 3 Young, 4 Lott, number 5 Gore, Roger Craig 6, Joe Perry 7, number 8 Patrick Willis. That's a nice list. I'm not gonna lie. Great job with that list, Pete. That's a good list. I didn't even mention primetime Deion. So Justin Smith, the GOAT. God, I love Justin, man. Someone asked me on Instagram when I had the story questions, and I put a box up, and you can anyone can ask me a question. Someone said, if you could take any 49er and put him on this current roster, who would it be? I went a little bit against the grain. There's so many good players, clearly so many good players. I went against the grain. I picked Justin Smith because I'm like, man, you put Justin Smith next to Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa got more than 22.5 sacks. If you put Justin Smith, that son of a gun, the Cowboy, if you put the Cowboy next to Nick Bosa and you look down the line and it's like you got Eric Armstead on the interior over the guard. On the opposite side of the guard, you got Justin Smith. You got Nick Bosa on the edge. Whoever you want to throw on the edge on the opposite side, to be honest. But you put Justin Smith next to Nick Bosa again. What was one of the main key factors? Not one of the main, but contributed, I would say, to Aldon Smith getting the sack production that he got. They ran those stunts like a son of a gun, where you have Justin Smith taking the guard, throwing him into the tackle. You get Aldon Smith looping around. Oh my goodness, the games that they could have ran. Justin Smith, Nick Bosa next to each other. Woo! I'm just saying, would have been nice. So I think we all agree. Yeah, you got better than Ray Lewis. Let's go. Willis kept me watching football in dark times. Facts. 100%. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. I think we would all agree that good old Patrick Willis, P. Willie, is a top 10 49er of all time. That's absolutely for sure. Yeah, can't forget Joe Staley, man. So many good players. Sean says Montana, Rice, Lott, Young, Craig, Willis, Justin Smith. Ooh, when's Justin Smith getting into the hall? Do you think he gets into the hall? I don't know. Gore, Bryant, Dana Stubblefield. Ooh, nice call. Hey, I'm talking about it right now. Like this seems like a great episode. Like if we were to we could do this, like we could do top 10, or like we can do all kinds of stuff. So you got me spinning my wheels. I wouldn't mind putting together some lists, and we can have some fun with some lives, and we can do some fun with some lists. Like it's off season, so lists are part of that top tier off season content. So we can start ranking best 49ers of all time. I like the idea of like, best, top 10 players of the 2000s or maybe the 90s, the 80s. So we can have some fun with some lists. That's definitely going to be some content coming down the road. And I like how we're talking about it too. Cap says Willis on my MySpace top 8 for sure. Oh, legends. Love that. Brings back memories. Good old MySpace. Question. Since we are talking about, top 49ers of all time. This one to me might be interesting, and I'm actually interested to see what you guys think about this. Where would you rank Trent Williams in overall 49? Now, Trent's only been here for 2 years. That's probably going to be the biggest thing going against Trent Williams at this point. Only been here for 2 years. Clearly, we've got forever 49ers, Patrick Willis, Joe Staley, guys like that. But where does, Trent put together probably one of the best seasons that we've ever seen from offensive linemen. So where would you have him right now? Right now, again, key factor, I think he's only been here for 2 years. But interested to see where you guys got him. So far, the Jedi saying not enough time, needs more time. Not written, so basically I'm assuming to be determined. Raymond says top 12 or 15, which I actually think is pretty accurate. I would say top 12, because again, legends. We are not a poverty franchise, right? We have studs everywhere. 13 through 17, I think that works. 13. Trent Gold Rush saying it with his chest. Trent is the best offensive lineman we've ever had outside of Joe. we've had some really good offensive linemen. Jesse Sapolu, legend. Again, we talked about Randy Cross earlier. Hell, who else? Mike Ayupati. Oh, the boy. Aaron Boone. We had some dogs on that offensive line, man. We had some dogs. But I agree. We got a Trent under Joe Staley. I mean, if we're talking legacy of 49ers, clearly I would say Joe is leading the legacy charge because he's a forever 49er. He was drafted by the team and he retired with the team after a long career. Again, he had to hang it up due to injuries. TBD, top 15, TBD, TBD. For my money's worth, he's I agree. He's the most dominant tackle I've ever seen in red and gold. But again, 2 years, sample size. So we'll see. Titan says Trent, Kittle, Bosa, Deebo. Only time will tell. Right now, TBD. So I think TBD is okay. But I would say TBD, he's at least top 20 TBD, right? Like he's like hanging around that top 20 overall 49ers of all time. Just because he hasn't, we know the talent. He's probably one of the most talented 49ers that we've ever had. Dylan says number one. Top 8. JK. I could tell you were joking from your top 1 comment. The best at bowling for D-line. Top 20. More time. So yeah, I feel you guys. More time. And I think we will definitely be able to place him a little bit better. Maybe if we get 2 more dominant years out of Trent Williams, he's just going to keep climbing. He's going to keep climbing, but I agree. I think we can all kind of safely say, probably top 20, but the legacy is a big part of it, right? Joe Staley. I mean, if we're going pure talent, I'm probably going Trent, but Joe and his legacy, like Joe's legacy is one of my favorites of the 49ers. I really became a fan of the 49ers when Joe Staley, like I've always been a fan, but if you're in this chat and you're talking about all-time 49ers, you're a crazy fan. There's levels of fandom. You can be like, I'm a fan of the 49ers. I watch them on primetime games. I check in on them. There's those kinds of fans. Then there are the fans that, they watch every game, but, news, off season, it's whatever. They'll watch every game. Then you start to get, I think, into our territory where we watch every game. We watch every piece of news. And we talk about it. And then we talk about everything through their offseason. So I think, Joe Staley, for what his legacy is, he's up there, man. He is he's one of my favorite 49ers legacy players, for sure. I love Joe, man. Joe's the best. And he needs more credit. And to be honest, Trent came in and, he played so well. Where do I rank Anthony Davis? I rank Anthony Davis. So I'm going to put Josh Norman right here. I'm going to put Anthony Davis right there. So Josh Norman is going to get the bump right above Anthony Davis. I would say Anthony Davis is probably going to be one of my lowest ranked 49ers of all time. Again, there are 2 players that I just could not stand. And I've been a fan of this team for over a decade now. Like, again, when I was talking about the levels of fandom, like a fan of this team for over a decade now. No player has pissed me off more than frickin' Anthony Davis. I swear to you. You guys know me too. I'm a big advocate. Don't at players. Don't go out of your way to talk crap to them. Don't do that stuff. It's stupid. It's childish. It's immature. It's not beneficial to anything. I added Anthony Davis on the regular. Oh my god, I got into it with Anthony Davis on Twitter a couple times, man. I thought that dude was the biggest bum of all time. Again, it didn't start out that way. It didn't start out that way. But when he retired on us, oh my god. And you know why he retired. You know why he retired. He didn't like what was going on around the franchise, and I get it. No one did. No one did. Anthony Davis was right tackle. So if you guys remember, I see people who Anthony Davis or we got a Lakers fan in there saying AD. What are you talking about? Anthony Davis was drafted in the first round with Mike Iupati. So in one of Bulky's best drafts, I crap on Bulky quite a bit, but if I have to tip my cap to Bulky, thought he did a great job drafting 2 impact offensive linemen in the first round. I think that was in 2011. And he drafted Mike Iupati, drafted Anthony Davis. He got a plug-and-play left guard and a plug-and-play right tackle. And Jim Harbaugh took those guys and created one of the, best rushing attacks in the NFL. But when it went down and it got bad, Anthony Davis gave up on the 49ers. He said, I'm done. And then the audacity to come back and be like, okay, well, Chip Kelly's here. I'm going to come back in and take my starting role. And we had Trent Brown. And Trent Brown said, nope, you're not getting your starting job back. And he didn't. And then he retired again. He's such a bum, dude. Like, oh my goodness. Sorry for the long-winded rant on Anthony Davis, but no, not a fan. Not a fan. And I see people talking about AJ Brown, Glenn Coffey. At least Glenn Coffey retired to join the military and did something admirable. Like, oh, but come on. Yeah, Anthony, man, he was the only one that him and like even Kyle Williams. I hold way more disdain for Anthony Davis than I do for Kyle Williams. At least Kyle Williams just it's 2 boneheaded mistakes that unfortunately defined his entire career. Anthony Davis retired twice on a team. Like, come on, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Well, I mean, we're going down memory road, I guess. We're kind of talking about Hall of Famers. We're talking about key 49ers. Someone asked me about Anthony Davis. I can't stand that man. He's probably my least favorite 49er of all time. Least favorite 49er of all time. Oh, yeah, I remember that. So, I'll be honest. I wasn't necessarily hyped for Marcus Lattimore, even though Marcus Lattimore was a savage in college and looked like he was going to be a guy that if he was healthy, yeah, he could have taken over the league. Like Marcus Lattimore's skill set coming out of, I believe it was South Carolina, special, man, really special. And then he had that devastating knee injury. I was already kind of sour on the ACL prospects. So when they took Marcus, I was like, "Ooh, 4th round? Like, can he play?" Because that was my thought process. I was like, "Can he play?" I was very concerned about his ability to actually do anything for the 49ers when they took him at 4. So I actually looked at it more as a reach just because I looked at the injury. I was like, oh, can he come back from that? Like, they talked about him potentially not coming back from it. They're like, he may never play football again. And we've heard those stories before where guys have come back, they've played, have had good careers. But I was real nervous about that. I was honestly, if he didn't have the knee injury, I would have been just as hyped as you. If he didn't have the knee injury, I would have been just as hyped because in college, Marcus Lattimore was different. He was one of those blue chippers. He was one of those Todd Gurley's out of Georgia, the Derrick Henry out of Alabama. He was one of those elite guys and had always been one of those elite guys. But yeah, that injury it was a tough injury and I was real nervous about it. And I was already kind of nervous about the way Balky was like going after these injury prospects and them not panning out. And that was kind of, right at the beginning I think we'd had a couple at that point, but that was like one of the real impactful ones that I think got people really excited about the player. But when we realized like, oh, he's not even going to play, like he's not even going to suit up, then I think that's where really the first kind of injury PTSD surrounding Trent Baalke and the prospects that he drafted really kicked in was around Marcus Lattimore, because I think there was hype that, oh, you draft him in the 4th round, he's going to be healthy. That means he could probably play. And just he's hurt. Trent Baalke can't hurt us anymore. Dude, I still have Trent Baalke PTSD, man. I talk about it from time to time. But that man, God, I can't believe he has a job. He hurt me. When you hear people like say, like, someone gets out of pocket hella random and they're like, who hurt you? Trent Baalke hurt me. Like if I ever get out of pocket like crazy and someone was like, it's okay, Trent can't hurt you anymore. And I'm like, okay, you're right. Trent can't hurt me anymore. You're right. Woosah. Like, like you talk about football PTSD, me and Trent Baalke don't vibe at all. So now we went from top 49ers. I like the kind of maturation of this episode. We went from like top 10 49ers. Now we're talking about bottom. We're talking about bottom tier. Okay, let's keep it rocking though. I like the topic. It's always fun to kind of go back, especially now in the off season when we're just talking 49ers football at this point. Give me a player that either you thought was going to be really good and just busted, or just a player you didn't like. Or just a player that didn't meet expectation. I was admittedly a huge Taylor Mays fan. I bought his jersey as a rookie before he even took a snap for the 49ers. I was very excited about Taylor Mays, and it was also very early, like into my scouting career. So when I look at Taylor Mays, you see the size, you see the athleticism, you see the intimidating nature that Taylor Mays was coming out of USC, playing at the great USC had a lot more clout at that time. And I just, I was real hyped about Taylor. I was. Oh, and it did not work out at all. Yeah, that sucked. That really sucked. Tank Carradine, good pull. FSU legend. Yep, I think he was another injury prospect, I believe. Have Aponte do top 5 all-time 49ers punters. That would be legit. I would actually like to see that and him put some time into it. Manny Lawson, AJ Jenkins, Mike Rump. Honestly, I don't blame Alex Smith. I do not blame Alex Smith. I blame the organization. Again, it's clear Alex Smith has talent. It's clear again, I'm a big environment guy. It's kind of my big thing with, talking about Trey Lance, like, and why I don't like love the idea of trading for the retired rights of Tom Brady to come on over and start ahead of Trey Lance yet again, because I already feel like, and especially too, we were talking about the interview a little bit. I already feel like, and I can sense like an environment of doubt a little bit. And I think when you have, I think what was it, 6 offensive coordinators in 7 years, no winning record, that's an environment of doubt. And when you're kind of in an environment of doubt, you're not going to, not everyone can rise through that right away. It takes time. It takes being the mental process to build through. I don't fault Alex. I think that was on the team. The organization of the team, that was on the team. Just going to get it out of the way. Jalen Hurd, 49ers legend Jalen Hurd. Chris Borland. Oh, Tim Rattay. Pettis. Yeah, that one hurt. Oh, this one hurt. Oh, I was so excited. I was so hyped for Reuben Foster. I thought Reuben Foster was the next one. I was like, oh yeah, we got another one. It's like we got another stud linebacker. Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. Now add Reuben Foster to the mix. Didn't work out that great. Did not work out that great. Kentwan Balmer. Yeah, it sucks, man. Brandon Lloyd, he did not come on. It took him a long time. Again, we talk about the developmental process. Brandon Lloyd became a really good wide receiver in his career. It just took time. It took him going to, I believe he thrived with Denver, was where he really started to pick it up. And then I think he came back to the 49ers and had a pretty decent time at that point. I think Patriots as well. But he didn't do what I think we wanted him to do with the 49ers, but he had a decent career overall. JJ Stokes. Yeah, JJ Stokes. I like JJ Stokes a lot too. I really did. D Ford. Crabtree, yeah, I think Crabtree was a bit of a disappointment. I didn't like how he started his career. I didn't like how he started his career as a holdout. I thought that was whack as hell. And I felt like that really spoke to kind of the person he was, and kind of feel like that's, starting out with the holdout after you get drafted in the first round, and then to kind of watch his career, it was kind of on par with that move. LaMichael James. What did we spend, like a second rounder on LaMichael James? Yeah, that stuck. Yeah, Alden. Alden was heading towards all-time 49er. He was heading there. He was heading towards there. Oh, too soon. Too soon. Too soon for me. Drunken Miller. Oh, Vance. Oh, my goodness. I'm not going to lie. I didn't like Vance either. Vance Brickhands McDonald. I scouted Vance coming out of Rice. I scouted him, and I labeled him as a bust. I labeled him as a bust. And the reason why, he couldn't catch. He had no hands. And I was like, he's probably not going to learn how to catch in the NFL if he can't catch in college. You either can catch or you can't catch. And he clearly showed the trait that he just has a hard time catching the football. I called him a bust right away. I called him a bust before he was a 49er. Again, part of the dissension that I have for Trent Baalke. I'm like, Vance McDonald, like with my whole chest. If I was, we were doing the draft back then, like we're going to be doing it now, I would have said to you guys, don't touch Vance McDonald with a 30-foot pole. That dude is the biggest bust, especially if you're trying to take him high. 49ers took him in the second round. He took him in the second round. You took a guy who can't catch in the second round? Baalke, bruh. Like, what? Like, and again, that's like what makes me scratch my head. I'm like, how can I? And say what you want. Like Vance had like spurts where he showed promise with the Steelers, but overall, second round, what he was drafted to be in the second round was a bust. And you don't draft blocking tight ends in the second round. That was my entire point. That was my entire point. You do not draft blocking tight ends in the second round. You block them or you draft them in the fifth or the sixth. Yeah, I did not like Vance. Did not like that very much at all. So there's a fun story. I haven't thought about Vance McDonald in some time now. We're going way down the hole now. Kwame Harris, yikes, not good. Ricky Running Waters. Cap had Alex Smith coaching problems in reverse. Kinda. I mean, I think Cap had his own set of issues as well with coaching. Nate Clements, Akello. Akello was a third rounder. I still think Akello has talent, but I think Akello he deals with the mental side of it more than the actual talent side of it. I think he's talented. Ooh, good call. So I was really excited about this one. I actually thought Joshua Garnett was going to be a player. Turned out I was very wrong about that. Joshua Garnett was not a player. He was not a player at all. He was not. Mullins was undrafted, man. Anything you get from Nick Mullins is cash money. I appreciate Nick. Nick will always be a legend. Always be a legend for taking down the Raiders. Always. First start. Oh my! I was at that game. Magic at Levi's. McKinnon, probably one of the worst contracts. Definitely under Kyle Shanahan. Jonathan Martin. Oof. 2 Stanford offensive linemen that did not pan out. Raymond says Vance is a goat. Bruce Miller. Now, see, I like the Bruce Miller. So this is where I was like really excited for Bulky, right? I don't know if it was him or someone else, but like when he drafted Bruce Miller in the 7th round as a defensive tackle out of UCF, like he took a defensive tackle out of UCF and flipped him into a fullback, and he became one of the best fullbacks in the league. So that's when I had like high hopes for Bulky. I was like, that 2011 draft, I thought he did a really good job with and got a lot of impact players. Again, one of my favorite picks he had was Bruce Miller. Taking a defensive tackle out of UCF and flipping him into one of the best fullbacks year one of his. I was like, well, okay, I see you. But that feeling didn't last long. Kinlaw, of course, he's going to be on bust watch just because he's a first rounder and we haven't seen much of him in 2 years. So that's the thing. We just got to see. There's just need time. Fortunately, Kaepernick kind of faded out. Kaepernick faded out a little bit. But yeah, he was so good. Again, I've told this story many times. Kaepernick was my first ever draft crush. Ever. Like Kaepernick coming out of Reno, 10,000 passing yards, 4,000 rushing yards over his career. I was like, you guys know how I get with my draft crushes. I get real serious about it. He was my first. So what a wild ride that was. I mean, Adrian Colbert, he was a 7th round pick. So is that really, is that really a big, I don't know. Garrison, I like Garrison, man. I like Garrison. I think Garrison Hurst was a great 49er. Yeah, we know about AJ. that was when it started to turn real bad for Balky. That's when oh my gosh. Do you guys remember? The dude literally wrote it down on a post-it or something and put it in an envelope. Said, I'm drafting AJ Jenkins first round, no matter what. Oh, Caden Smith. I actually like Caden. I think the 49ers made a mistake letting him go. And I think Caden would be a very, actually someone who would be productive, extremely productive in this scheme if he stayed here. I think that was and I said it in real time as well. I was like, because they picked Levine Toilolo over Caden Smith because I think they thought they could get Caden Smith on the practice squad. And I was like, what are we doing? Caden Smith out of Stanford, like I liked him a lot. I was like, what are we doing? Swooped by the Giants. Never to be seen again. He's still on the Giants. Jared Hayne? Yikes. That dude turned out to be a world-class a-hole. Oh, I remember Lawrence, our good old, overseas program. I remember that. Man, we're really going back. Shiloh Rochelle. What about Zane Beatles? God, I couldn't stand Zane. But yeah, man, it's been a wild ride, right? We've seen our fair share of greats, and we've seen our fair share of just totally yikes. Like what are we thinking here? So, and that's how it is, and that's why I think football is so cool, and it's just a crapshoot. Like that's why I love scouting. Because you can have like 10 people watch the same prospect, and 10 people could come away with potentially 10 different evaluations on a player. And I think that's one of the coolest things about scouting is because I use my experience to scout, like my experience as a player, my experience as someone who's been scouting for about 10 years. Like I just use my experience. I don't like, I'm at the point in my scouting career where I don't check to see like what's Daniel Jeremiah saying or what's Lance Zierlein saying or back in the, Mike Mayock. I call Mike Mayock my draft dad. I love Mike Mayock. And there was a point where I'd like, I like this player. Now I want to go see what this draft expert says and like make sure that like I'm on point. Like there used to be that time. I don't do that anymore. I feel really confident in my ability, but I think that's what the cool thing about scouting is that we can all look at a prospect a certain way and see different traits, see different intangibles, see things that other people don't see. And I think that makes it really fun. It allows you to be able to essentially paint your own picture of a prospect. And because you can have such polarizing takes on a guy, like for example, like Paxton Lynch. You guys remember Paxton Lynch coming out of college? Oh my goodness. People thought Paxton Lynch was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't understand what anyone is watching. Like, what are you watching? Like, I have no idea. Like, what the hell is going on here? And because if you look at Paxton Lynch, you look at his throwing charts, everything he did was 5 yards or behind the line of scrimmage. He had a rocket arm and he had height, but if you looked at how he actually gained his production, it was all on bubble screens. It was all on slants. Like it was pure spread madness. And I'm just like, who thinks that this guy's going to transfer to the NFL? He was an insta-bust. I'm very prideful in my instabust caliber of being able to identify instabust. I got into arguments with people. People would yell at me. What are you talking about? I'm like, this guy's terrible. Like, how can anyone like this guy? Oh, I got yelled at. I got, who's this guy? Who's Scout? I'm just saying, man. Just saying. But someone said, have I ever missed on a prospect? 100%. 100%. 100%. I think scouting, it's kind of like what's your hit rate, right? Like what percentage are you hitting on? Because 100% doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the NFL. So like if you see something a certain way, like, and you go about scouting a certain way, and you go through looking at your prospects a certain way, and you start stacking them up, and you start to see that I hit way more than I miss. That's what you look at. You're kind of looking at the overall body of work. I'm not perfect. I've missed plenty of times. There have been guys where I'm like, this guy's gonna be sick, and just because also too, just like we talked about, with Alex Smith, it's not just the prospect, it's fit. A fit is a big part of the draft process. If you take a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's one of the best prospects we've ever seen, and you put him in a terrible situation with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trent Baalke, funny enough, and Urban Meyer, they're going to look like ass. So, like, that's half the equation. So there are prospects that exist that have landed on teams and situations that are dumpster fires and completely wasted their career. Like Alex Smith is a perfect example. He landed on the dumpster fire. He had talent, he had the ability, but when the environment is terrible, it not only brings everyone else down, but it's going to bring you down. It's going to bring you down as well. So a big part of the process when scouting, like that's why I like scouting through the lens of the 49ers, because I scout Kyle. I scout tendencies, like what they are looking for, how they use personnel. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to fit these prospects through that lens to see who aligns with what the 49ers want, because what the 49ers want is going to be a lot different than what the Raiders want. You know what I mean? So that's kind of part of it. But there have, like, again, one of these guys that I really liked, Jerron Kreiner, Arizona wide receiver. He was Nick Foles' number one target in college. I thought he had high upside. I thought he had really wide receiver is one of my favorite positions to scout. I would say it's probably one of the most successful positions that I've scouted. Like hitting on gem after gem after gem. I probably hit on wide receiver more than any other position. But with Jerron Kreiner, he went to the Raiders. The second he got drafted by the Raiders, I was like, oh, he's done. I was like, he's done. Like, there's no chance. There's no chance he's going to do anything, because the Raiders were at that point dumpster fire. And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, he landed in the worst possible spot. So where you land matters. And that also plays a part into it. Like, again, you see these great prospects land in a terrible situation, and it kind of ruins their. I say this all the time. I might not say it on lives a lot, but I do say confidence in the NFL is fragile, and you must protect it at all costs, which again is part of why I talk about Lance, why I talk about not wanting to bring in yet another quarterback to start in front of him, because confidence in the NFL is fragile. And if you hurt it early, there might be irreparable damage. So that's where I'm at with Lance. I'm at the point where we can all like be excited about Lance, but on the same time, we also have to recognize, as a 21-year-old in his first year in the NFL, having the pressure of being the number 3 overall pick and then sitting behind Jimmy Garoppolo, and then the polarization that of a tidal wave of just negative energy, not only internally, but externally. I'm terrified. Like, I'm terrified of like where he's at. Again, you go watch that interview on Niners Nation with Trey Lance. Like, I'm terrified. I hope he comes out, and I hope he made it through that like crazy situation where every single one of his teammates is not backing him up. It's backing up Jimmy. It's like literally you have guys like Alex Mack saying like, "Oh, Trey's great, but I don't want him to start. I want Jimmy to start." Like that, just saying. We're all prideful. We all put pressure on ourselves. But when you have the pressure of being the number 3 overall pick, and I just think, they talked about it too. Oh, he came in hot. He came in ready to go, but then he tapered off. I was at training camp. It's not like they built him up to have a shot to go after the quarterback one. So, again, confidence is fragile in the NFL, and it must be protected at all costs. So, that's why I don't want any more like, oh, come get Brady in. Let's get retired Brady in to come in and potentially take another hit to Trey Lance. I just don't want that. I just don't want that. I want Trey Lance to feel like he is successful and has the opportunity and belief. Again, environment of belief. To me, you bring in another veteran quarterback, and I understand all the angles. A veteran quarterback comes in, potentially takes 49ers to the Super Bowl. That's fantastic. But I also don't want to, in the meantime, while we're chasing a potential Super Bowl, damage a quarterback further who I already think caught some strays. So I want to develop my guy. I want to develop Trey. I want him to be the best quarterback that he can be. So I want to build an environment of belief around him. He hasn't had that. He's had the opposite. He's had an environment of doubt, because when you believe in Jimmy, it's just human nature. That creates an environment of doubt for the other guy. So I just want to protect his mentals at all costs. Raymond says, so Trey talk, Niners are a team to watch when it comes to Barkley due to possibly losing both him and Wilson. Yay or nay, and why? Would love your take. It's a good question, Raymond. It's a good question. But for me, it's a pretty resounding no. If you could get Saquon Barkley for a bag of chips, or like a player that, I don't know, if you get him for cheap, that's a different conversation. If you are able to get Saquon Barkley for cheap, like I said, cheap, where it's really the risk reward is heavily in favor of the reward and it's low risk, then okay. But I don't see a world that exists where a former top 5 running back, who's coming off a pretty severe injury, is going to garner a lot of interest, because he's still getting paid a lot for being, I think it was the number 2 overall pick, and he was fantastic at one point. But again, I think as I continue to evolve, I'm evolving with the league. I'm evolving with the thought of I can find talented running backs in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round, undrafted guys. I can find those guys, and I don't have to spend an exorbitant amount of money and or draft capital to get that guy. Now, Saquon Barkley is a little bit different just because of the injury. I think if he didn't have an injury, it could be different. But the injury scares me. And to the point of I'm not willing to give like major compensation for an injured running back. And we already know, again, look at Todd Gurley, man. Look at Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was the best running back in the NFL. In my opinion, the best. And then like this, one injury, he's not in the league anymore. And that terrifies me. That scares me. And so we talked about it with Marcus Lattimore. Again, guys that use their legs and they need their legs to generate power and do those kinds of things. That scares me to purchase that player. I would, and I think Jordan Elliott and I were talking about this, and he was throwing around like he's like I think we both kind of had, that similar kind of mentality of like we can find talent, like we can find talent in the later rounds and fit them into the scheme, and they would be successful. But it would be interesting to see, like, what if the 49ers did get elite back, a Leonard Fournette. Not a good example. But just just quality top 5 running back in Kyle's scheme. What does that look like? I don't know. Could be really cool. Could be a situation where you're like, all right, wow. A truly elite running back could really take the team over the top. Oh, Mixon would be nice in this offense. I like that. That's a different conversation. I think Mixon's one of the most durable running backs in the NFL. He's one of the hardest runners. He's really good back. So I like the idea of Saquon Barkley on the 49ers when he was coming out of Penn State. But I don't necessarily love the idea of trading for him. The injury scares me. The injury scares me the most. I missed this one way earlier. Daryl says, how do you feel about Deion Sanders? I liked him. He was a very good player, but his head was and still too big. I thought with Deion, again, he played for the 49ers when I was like 5 or 6 years old. So my real time, my take on Deion with the 49ers is going to be revisionist history. It's going to be me doing, going back and watching. If you watch, I don't know exactly what it's called. But there's like this little documentary. They did it on, it was basically like Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders kind of talking about their relationship. And I didn't realize how much they didn't get along. I didn't realize that like Deion and Jerry like really didn't like each other. And it was because of work ethic. They were complete polar opposites. Jerry was a work, effort guy. 100%, 120%, always. And you had Deion, look at me, flash in the pan, not flash in the pan, but like, flashy and like egotistical, like where I think Jerry and his greatness was driven through his work. And 100% through his work. I think what made Prime was the personality, was the kind of I'm the best and screw you, whatever kind of mentality that came along with it. Doesn't necessarily mean he worked as hard as Jerry did. But if you watch that documentary, man, it was pretty freaking cool because you could tell they were at each other's necks. But ultimately, I think it made the team better. And I think one of the coolest scenes was they're talking about their back and forth, their fights in practice, their like constant just like not seeing eye to eye on how to go about the game. And Jerry, I think it that Super Bowl against the Bengals? I think he was like playing with one shoulder. He was like playing with one shoulder. Dude couldn't even strap up his helmet. And I thought just like one of the coolest moments, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. It's like Jerry's coming off the field, his arms hanging, he's like trying to get his strap on, and Deion just comes over to him, straps him up, and I was just like, that's football, man. Like that is football. That's like the ultimate just like respect, like in the moment. Like they could be at each other's neck for years about how to actually go about it. But in the moment, in the game, when you see Jerry laying everything out on the line, he's playing with one shoulder, and you see Deion come up to Jerry and just strap his helmet in, I'm just like, dude, like that. I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps thinking about it. Like that's the type of stuff why I love football, because when I played football, that's the type of stuff that I loved. The little things between plays, the little things, the communications, and that stuff is why I love football so much. So when I saw that, oh, it's crazy, man. I was like, okay. And then, that's where the respect comes from. That's where they really start to uh I think someone's saying it was a 30 for 30. I'm not sure, to be honest, but I'm sure if you search Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders, you're going to see that those two didn't get along. You're going to see that practice habits, off field habits, they didn't vibe at all. Complete polar opposites. Um, so, but at the end of the day, ultimate competitors, um, and that's where the respect came from. Ultimately, in the end, um, so it was great. I didn't know about that until a couple years ago. So I had no idea of that context. I know Deion as high stepping, Jerry Curl, brash, loud, huge playmaker, ball hawk. Uh, one of the best cornerbacks to ever play. But the insight into the personality, the way they meshed and gelled, it was very interesting. Gave me a whole different level of respect for both of them, to be honest. But it is worth a watch. It definitely gives you a different level of insight into their battles, how they went about their business. It was a lot of fun. It was a good one. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm glad I could save you from your boredom, Jason. I'm glad that me talking about random moments in 49ers history can save you from being bored. I am glad about that. Oh, I think we did say we were going to talk about the Trey Lance interview. I said I was going to talk about that. I kind of talked about it a little bit. I guess we can talk about it a little bit more. So again, I'm still terrified. I still don't know, like, from a mentality standpoint. Again, I'm big into sports psychology. I'm big into the mental side of football. I know a lot of people don't look at it that way. They look about, I want to see production and production only. But again, the same story that I just told about Jerry and Deion, that's football. That's when you have 53 guys, all different personalities, upbringings, race, religion, doesn't matter where you came from. But now you have to work together as a team and you have to move forward towards a common goal. There's so much that comes from the human element of football that's just not talked about enough. And when I talk about Trey Lance and I talk about, wanting to develop a quarterback, I'm talking about trying to develop the person. This is a kid we're talking about. I think it's very important. Again, when the 49ers drafted Deebo Samuel, he was 24 years old. When the 49ers drafted George Kittle, he was 24 years old. So they had way more life experience when they entered the NFL. Trey Lance entered the NFL at the age of 20. He wasn't even 21 yet. He was drafted by the 49ers at the age of 20. 4 years, again, if you are past the age of, let's say, 25, 26, 27, I'm sure you can look back at your own personal life and mentality and maturity to look back and say, yeah, that 20 to 24, there's a big jump that occurs and comes from growth, personal growth, and just getting some more years under your belt. And so I think that's just one of the things that I've always been worried about, is just he's a kid. How is this situation going to affect him as a kid? And what is he going to look like on the other side of it? Is he going to be able to maintain? One of the reasons why I was very big on Justin Fields was because we didn't see Trey Lance in 2020. So I didn't get to see Trey Lance play through any real adversity. I saw him play against one game against real adversity, and that was in 2020. And he didn't play great. But with Justin Fields, you saw Justin Fields go through adversity after adversity after adversity, and big time game and big time game and big time game. And that experience is what develops you as a person. Again, big reason why I want Trey Lance to get experience. That is, that you can only learn so much from sitting and watching. At a certain point, you have to actually go out and do it. And then the real true experience comes from execution. And so when I was scouting Justin, you had those examples. You could see the dude getting cracked ribs, getting rocked, standing back up, delivering. Big time moment, epic loss, coming back, balling. Like, you got to see this dude get hammered in the media for an entire year and still come out on top. And so to me, that is proof that I can see a guy who, if he's put into a toxic situation like the Chicago Bears, he can make it through. On the other side, again, what we keep hearing from every single 49er player, I don't think they think Trey's ready. And when they say ready, they're not talking about his physical makeup. They're not talking about his arm strength. Those arm strengths not ready. His ability isn't ready. It's this. Cap says, I'm honestly not worried about Trey's confidence. I'm just worried about him being irritated and feeling betrayed. And that plays into confidence, my boy. If you're irritated and you feel betrayed, think about it. If you're betrayed, that affects your confidence in what the team that drafted you believes in you, which then affects your confidence. It's what you're saying is all in the same. Irritated, feeling betrayed affects confidence, affects mentality, affects mental. It's all the same thing. So we're saying the same things, Cap, just so we are on the same page. Confidence stems from situation. So that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the kid. I'm worried about the human Trey Lance. I'm not worried about the football player Trey Lance. I'm worried about the player Trey Lance, because again, we've heard it from players. I've had some conversations behind the scenes. I'm just worried. I'm just worried about like his development and not traumatizing the kid, because once you develop trauma, once the trauma is there And if you don't work through the trauma, I can't honestly sit back and say, like, if I was 21 years old and had to be drafted number 3 overall and then sit behind Jimmy and hear all these players in the locker room really not stand up for me and stand up for the other guy that I'm in here to replace, like, I'm not going to lie, I got put into a kind of a weird situation when my own like work career. I was a project manager. I was at my original company. I got hired. Decided I wanted to leave because they're a little bit dysfunctional, and I went to another company as a project manager. And when I was with this other company, you kind of get the sense of like, okay, well, actually, the other company I was with wasn't as bad. And then they had gotten rid of a couple of higher ups that just weren't good for the company. And I was like, okay, well, maybe there's an opportunity for me to come back. And so I did. I went back, to my original company. But in the instance of which I came back, they fired the most popular project manager in the company that Friday. And I came in and sat at his desk on Monday and took over his position. And I can tell you, for me, that was hella awkward. Like, that was like, oh, and it's like, it just felt weird. Like, him being like, his shit was still in his office. I was like, bro, what the hell is going on? That was weird for me. Like, just that. Like, he got fired on Friday, and I come in and sitting in his desk on Monday at 8 a.m. in the morning. Like, it was just weird. And so, like, what I'm talking about is that the dynamic, like the dynamic, it can create weird tension. Like, it can create, doubt. Again, environment of doubt. Like, oh, it's kind of weird. You create anxiety and things like that. So, again, being a 21-year-old kid drafted number 3 overall in the NFL to come onto a team that sticks up for Jimmy and not you. Whenever they talk about you, they just say you're not ready. Like, I'm just saying, scared. I'm scared. So we'll see. I'm scared. No amount of anxiety we have will prevent what may be next to come, but Trey will rise to the moment. He is in hands of a great coaching staff. Yeah, I agree, and I don't think that's the issue. I don't think that's the issue at hand. Again, social dynamics, locker room dynamics, things that we don't talk about as football fans very often. I think it's one of the biggest key factors here. Again, it was one of the biggest key factors of the season. Jimmy Garoppolo and the way he moved through the year and the way he galvanized the locker room. Again, that's galvanizing the locker room away from Trey Lance. And as a kid who doesn't have the experience, you don't know how that's going to affect someone. You don't know. Did you take psychology courses? I did. I took multiple psychology courses. I took a lot of also early childhood development psychology courses as well. So I'm a big psychology person. Big psychology person. So we'll see. We'll see. Cap says that's the first sign of irritation I've seen from him, and I love it. I think he'll be great when given the opportunity. I really hope so, man. I really hope so. Jason says, kid leading men. I know in the construction field, guys really don't like that kind of thing. Exactly. That is a great correlation. I worked in, so I was a project manager of fabricators. We did insane build outs, trade shows, lobby environments, museums for the biggest companies you can think of. And we had 300,000 square feet of production facility, woodworkers, painters, scenic artists, you name it. We had everything. So, and And one of the things that I found out really quickly is that shop floor is a lot like a locker room. You got a lot of men. It's just guys, woodworkers, like metal workers, like tradesmen, um, salt of the earth kind of people, blue collar. So very similar to the mentality of the guys who play football. Again, like production, everything's production based. You have a certain kind of mentality about it. Um, there are a lot of similarities there. And again, good point. Kid leading men, they don't like that. They want, and if it's going to be a kid, look at Joe Burrow. Look at how they speak about. Look at how Joe Burrow talked about. When we look at Joe Burrow and we look at Trey Lance and we go traits to traits, you could even make the argument that Trey Lance probably has better traits. You could even make the argument that Trey might have a little bit more live of an arm. Clearly, we can talk about how he clearly has the mobility thing way over Joe Burrow. Body type, measurable wise, he's probably got a better NFL body than Joe Burrow. But what do they talk about with Joe Burrow all the time? Joe Burrow's a second-year kid. What do they talk about? What do they talk about when they mention Joe Burrow and why Joe Burrow's good and why they like playing for Joe Burrow and that kind of stuff? They talk about his mentality. They talk about his confidence. They talk about, being wise beyond his years. Just saying. I got faith. And that's, kind of why I wanted Trey to kind of come out the gates swinging. I wanted him to kind of get the experience right away. I wanted the environment of belief from the jump. I didn't want I didn't want the competition because I felt like I talked about it all the time last year, how it could derail a locker room. And then you create these psychological affects that result from, disdain, things like that. And so I'm not saying that's the case. It's just a range of outcome. It's something that I think about, and things like that. Why isn't it fair to compare Trey Lance to Joe Burrow? They're both quarterbacks. Yeah, exactly. He's 25 years old. We're talking about a 21-year-old. You guys are making my point for me. Again, he's a 21-year-old kid. So 21-year-old kids, like I just talked about, have a much different way of processing things than a 25-year-old. Is literally the point that I had just made before we got over to this subject. So that's exactly the point. So thank you for bringing that one together. So that's the only thing that I'm worried about is just the maturation process. And when you can damage someone early on, it can be harder for them to work out of it. And so I am a little bit nervous of Trey potentially getting again. He's a human. He's just like us. Like we have feelings, we have pride, we put pressure on ourselves, and that's how it works. That's life. So that's the entire point that I'm making. He's a kid. How is he going to handle it going through this as a kid versus Joe Burrow, who won a national championship? Joe Burrow went through a situation at Ohio State, right? He got benched. I think he got hurt. He didn't, he dealt with those expectations early in college. And then he transferred to LSU and put together one of the best college football years that we'd ever seen. But he had the experience at that point. So I'm just saying. Oh, 100%. That's exactly what we're talking about. That's the point. Trey Lance had 1 year, really 1 year as a 19-year-old, and that was it. And then you put the pressure of being the third overall, and then you divide a locker room over him. How is he going to react to that? He's not the same as Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is older. That's the point. He already went through adversity in college to then transfer and then win a national championship that then created the polish and experience to then be able to move into the role of franchise quarterback. Trey didn't have that. So that's the whole point, is that when you don't have that experience and you're not preloaded moving into the NFL with that, and you're experiencing true adversity for the first time in the NFL, how does that impact you in the long run, short term? Something to think about. Something to think about. Something that I worry about. Something that I worry about. Let's see. Lance went to a smaller school because he wanted to play quarterback. He also had to deal with adversity in college and achieve success. Of course, every person has to deal with adversity, but doesn't mean that it's apples to apples comparison. I would say going to a smaller school actually, there's a lot different, I think, like processing that probably goes through playing at NDSU for a national championship versus playing at LSU for a national championship. It's a lot different. So we'll see. We'll see. Josh says, do you think Trey has the mentality ceiling to handle the ups and downs at this time with his age and with his brain point of involvement? Yeah, I do. But again, we understand everyone's path isn't linear. It's not in a straight line. It goes up, it goes down. It's about how you deal with adversity. And so now we're going to see. I can guarantee you that was an adverse year for Trey Lance. Again, the entire 49ers Twitter arguing about it. There are legitimate people. There are legitimate people that have their own scars from this conversation. Like they've been hurt by other people because they were talking about Jimmy Garoppolo versus Trey Lance. Like that exists. And trust me, they see that. And just like you, it would have an impact. So, but I do think, it's just though, like, I don't want to continue to compound an environment of doubt. I don't want to continue to compound an environment of doubt around Trey Lance. I want to give Trey Lance at least a sense of belief that, hey, man, we're going to give you this year to be the starter. And you don't got to look over your shoulder for Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or whatever. But I would just like to see what happens when the center, the tight end, the left tackle, the head coach, the GM, the middle linebacker, the defensive end, they all say, we believe in Trey and we believe Trey will lead us. I have not heard that. I have heard we have faith that he can and grow and do that. But there's a big difference in how they speak about Jimmy versus how they speak about Trey. Cap says, I agree with your concern. We have to nourish Trey. Just am confident because Trey's been doubted as a QB since high school. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the level of doubt is much different than being like, we think you're a safety versus being put in the middle of a locker room where everyone's saying this is the guy and you're not the guy. I think it's a little bit different context. But I also agree. Like, I believe that he can. I think what I'm trying to talk about too is I'm starting to get some seeds of doubt of are they confident in him? Like, because you guys know what I do. I'm going to look at all of it. I'm going to process it through my weird brain and process it multiple ways through multiple perspectives and multiple lenses. Then I'm going to try to put them all together and be like, this is kind of how I feel about it. I believe in Trey. I think Trey has all the baseline traits, intangibles, and measurable to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But I also recognize that confidence is fragile. And with a kid, it's going to be even more fragile. If that makes sense. That's basically the point I'm just trying to make, is that if he was a kid who had to transfer and had to overcome like that kind of crazy adversity of playing, in the SEC where they're crazy, it's like just like playing in the NFL almost. Then you kind of have that callus built up. I don't know what his callus is like. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Is like I don't know what his callus is like up until this point. They've reported on it that he came out hot into training camp and that he took a kind of a dip. So was that mentality related? It's not talent related because the talent's there, right? So I think let me try to wrap it up because I think of things through crazy. That's why like Twitter doesn't work for me. It's because I only have 140 characters to talk about something that I've processed through 80 different ranges of outcomes. So it's like sometimes I don't tweet nuance and I'm just like I tweet like my opinion, but it's gone through so many different like levels of nuance to get to it's missed. So I recognize that. But I think what I'm really trying to say is I just want to ensure that the future of the franchise, Trey Lance, has the best situation in front of him to be successful. And I would like that to start this year. And I think that means being starter, QB1, no legitimate comp. Like he went through the competition thing and it didn't work out for him. He got beat out by Jimmy. The entire locker room, also played a big hand in that. So I just want to kind of see a situation where Trey Lance feels like he is now empowered, like Jimmy was, if that makes sense. I want to see Trey be empowered to be like, hey, man, you're the starter. Let's go. Let's get rocking. And then see how he matures through that lens versus sitting for a third year. Because if he does sit this year, that's 3 years he hasn't played. And you know what I mean? Like the kid hasn't played since he was 19. So when we look at development and we look at not just development as a football player, but development from a psychological standpoint, not playing for 2 years, not playing for 3 years, when you're already a kid. Again, Joe Burrow, Kittle played 4 years in college. Deebo Samuel, he was injured, but he got 3-4 years in college. Lance got 1. So it was very good 1 year. But that's not who Trey Lance is as a 19-year-old. Like who we're going to see in the NFL is not going to be that 19-year-old kid because he's going to grow, mature, and develop. So that's just the biggest thing is like, I don't want to stunt him in a time where he still needs to develop. That's where all these crazy things that I'm saying really just comes back down to. It just comes back down to that. I just don't want to stunt his growth. I want to, and I don't have the real insight into like how they're developing, like what the situation is. Is it what I think it is? Is it not what I think? I'm speculating. But the overall theme of this conversation is I just want the guy to feel the belief and feel like he can go out and be his best self. And because I agree, competition is something you should embrace, but they didn't have a competition. That training camp, like I thought it wasn't a competition. So that's part of the thing that I think I had a hard time as a former, I didn't play at like a crazy high level or anything, but I played football a long time, and I'm bred to believe competition is competition, and competition is always going to be just that. It's competition. Best man wins. One of the things that Trey says in that um, interview is, I learned how the NFL works. And that to me is a much bigger picture of basically saying it's not just competition. It's not just best football players going to go out and play. There are a lot of moving parts behind the scenes. There's a lot of political, I guess, aspects to certain things. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Um, Definitely went down the rabbit hole on that one. But I agree. Like, if I would have loved to see an open competition in training camp, I would have loved to see Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo going toe to toe with one another. That's not what it was. It really wasn't. They went through the entire training camp with Trey as QB2. So if Trey's going to be QB2 and you're not going to give him an opportunity to, run with the ones, show what he can do with the ones, give him the belief that he can run with the ones. I don't know. I just think, what do I mean political? Like, there's a lot of roster politics. Like, if you played at high school, I forget who said it. It was someone on the team. It was someone on the 49ers. They talked about it specifically. They're like, man, when I was in high school, I thought when I went to college, there wouldn't be roster politics, because there's roster politics wherever you go. Coaches have favorites. Coaches, if you've ever played sports, there are plenty of opportunities where the best player actually might not be playing where he should or how he should because the coach doesn't like him. So, roster politics. And a player on the 49ers was like, when I went to college, I was like, great, I'm getting out of the high school roster politics. And he was like, I went to college and I realized there's more politics in college. And he's like, all right, well, it's going to be fine. When I get to the NFL, it's just best man win. If you're the best player, you're going to get on the field. He's like, when I went to the NFL, by far insane roster politics. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, and it's behind the scenes stuff like that we don't even have access to. Justin says, Brad, off topic, but when you check Tyler Batty, watch Embrace the Grinds feature on him on YouTube. Gives some background on him as a person. Interesting story for sure. I'll check that out. I still got a couple guys I need to check out. JoJo. I still need to check out JoJo. And Marcus McLean as well. So I feel you. I will. I definitely like looking at that stuff for sure. Definitely like looking at that stuff for sure. So yeah, that was honestly kind of a wild episode. Kind of a wild episode. Started out with snubs, then we went to top 10 49ers, then we went to bottom of the barrel 49ers, and then we went to Trey Lance. And is he going to develop properly, or is he not going to develop properly? So that's the question. That's the question that we're going to continue to be talking about. I don't, if I had to give my gut on it, I don't know. I could see a world where the 49ers, say like, let's give him one more year. And they're like, okay, let's bring in Rodgers or whatever. And they have the opportunity at like a legitimate NFL starter. Maybe that happens. I don't know. I don't think it's a range of outcome that we don't look at. But again, it becomes then a conversation of 3 years of not playing football. Is Trey Lance going to be the same player that he was at 19 than he is at 22 when he hasn't played football in 3 years? That a lot of players develop in that 20, 21, 22, 23 in college. He's not doing that. He's doing that in the NFL. And doing it in the NFL is just at a different level. And there's a range of outcome where he's becomes tough as nails from this. Like there's a range of outcome where he learns exactly what he needs to learn. And it was a good experience and it calloused him and it allowed him to be the quarterback that he's going to become. So this conversation could be, it could be whatever. It's just ranges of outcomes. We're looking at everything, something that I'm thinking about. And yeah, it's human element, big human element. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. That's the number one thing. So if you see me on the timeline, talking about quarterback and talking about it in a specific way, my number one thought process going into this year is to get the best out of Trey Lance, not to get the best out of Aaron Rodgers, not to get the best out of someone else. I want to get the best out of Trey Lance. And so that's how I'm moving through this, is I'm trying to get the best of Trey Lance. I want those picks to be like worthy of being traded for Trey Lance. So I want to get the best out the man. But, I haven't played in the NFL, so I don't know. What do I know? Thoughts. We'll end our episode on thoughts on Vic Fangio. I would like that. I think it makes a lot of sense. Especially too because, he doesn't need to get paid. He's getting paid as a head coach. And I think what's really cool about it, because if he does come in as a consultant, we understand that D'Amico is going to get a head coaching job next year. I think it's almost like it's like written in stone at this point. If there was like a bet you could put on D'Amico Ryans getting a head coach job next year, you should do it, because I don't see a world where D'Amico Ryans is not a head coach next year. So it actually becomes a really solid opportunity for a guy like Vic Fangio, who's definitely on the back stretch of his career as a coach, to get familiar with the team, get familiar with an organization, learn and understand what D'Amico and how D'Amico's successful, because Vic Fangio, I think, is a fantastic coach. Again, shout out Balky. I think Balky is the reason why Fangio wasn't hired, and they hired Tom Sula. I think that was a Balky call. But I think Fangio would. What's interesting about Fangio, he runs a 3-4, so it's a much different scheme than what the 49ers have ran since they selected, or the new regime took over. So there might be a little scheme philosophy change, but that's why I think the consulting role could actually fit pretty well for Vic, because the way they're drafting for a 4-3 team. They don't have the outside linebackers to transfer to a 3-4. That's just not how they're built, and they've been drafting for a 4-3. Again, Bosa, probably not a stand-up outside linebacker. He fits best as a Leo, as a hand in the dirt, defensive end in a 4-3. It's a lot different traits that come from the scheme. So scheme dictates, personnel, and with the personnel that they've been drafting for 5 years now, It's all fitting a 4-3. So if Vic comes in, he could learn, he could kind of adjust his mentality to kind of understand what D'Amico's doing, why D'Amico's doing it from a 4-3 perspective, and then taking 3-4 concepts and marrying his his ideologies with D'Amico's, already understanding the talent on the roster. And then after D'Amico gets hired, boom, Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I don't feel as bad about D'Amico Ryans potentially getting hired to go somewhere else. So I like it. I think it makes sense. I think Vic Fangio, like I said, he's always been underrated coach for the 49ers, one of my favorite coaches. Um, Again, we know what happened in Denver. Denver didn't have a freaking quarterback, and they couldn't do anything. That to me feels more like a front office situation. They haven't been able to replace Peyton Manning to save their life, and they're they're dealing with everything else at this point. So I like it. If Fangio comes over to the 49ers, that's a win. That's a huge win. And I like it for the long term. I like it for when D'Amico gets a head coaching job somewhere else. Then you just instantly pop in one of the most experienced defensive coordinators in the NFL. I think that's a good plan. And I think if there's anything that we've seen from this organization, is they're good at planning. They are. They are good at planning. They are good at looking ahead. They are good at, I think fans, myself included, I think we can get real hyper focused on what's happening right now. Like right now and only right now and how it affects right now. But just like anything in life, in your work life, in your home life, you plan. You have points that you're trying to hit and things that you plan based on moving parts. And like, hey, this guy's not going to be here next year, so we're going to start developing a plan to get a replacement in a rookie. You know what I mean? So I think this organization has really proven that they're good at planning, good at anticipating next steps. So that would just kind of fall in line with that. Jay says, I plan ahead on my Madden franchise Niner team. What's good, Lil Will? SDS gang in the building. So yeah, I like it. I think it would be good. I would be happy with it. And I think it would, again, set us up for long-term success. So that's kind of this quarterback conversation, man, though, is going to continue to sound, I think, for at least from my perspective, it's going to sound a lot like the same. My number one main interest surrounding the quarterback will be development, and more development. And I want him to develop in a specific way. But again, I'm not in that building, so they might have a whole set of information that they're working off of that I don't have, and I'm just throwing ideas against the wall, trying to. I don't have their context. I'm not in. I'm not in that building. But ultimately, what I want is Trey Lance to be successful. I want him to be successful. No. If I'm guessing you're just joining us, Niner, by nature, because that's not at all what I just spent like the last half an hour talking about. Exactly. Word of the day: development. Development. This is exactly what I was talking about, Niners, man. This is all I talked about. That's all I was talking about. I was like, we got to get Trey going. We gotta give this man the belief. We got to make him believe he's QB1 before he can be QB1. That's part of it. Got to make the man believe he's QB1 so he can reach being QB1. Environment of belief, not environment of doubt. Bringing in other quarterbacks creates environment of doubt. Don't want that. I want environment of belief, and I want environment of belief to then nurture and develop and bring all of Trey's strengths to the top, not suppress them because there's an environment of doubt. It's essentially what I talked about for the last half an hour. Yes, we are big pro Trey play. Big time. We were big time last year for that exact reason. Literally, exact reason. It hasn't changed. I wrote this in articles in January last offseason. If the 49ers are drafting a rookie, it needed to be just the rookie and not keeping Jimmy. Because although keeping Jimmy was beneficial for the locker room, I don't think it's 100% benefit. Like, I think there are levels of beneficialness, if that's the word. There is things that you could absolutely learn from sitting behind Jimmy and Trey, but we understand what it was. It was very toxic. Very toxic. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Love that, man. Hey, I just love talking about football. Love talking about football. We got to build an environment for Trey Lance so he knows that we got his back no matter what. And that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. This is exactly it. I can guarantee, I could probably speak for a lot of you and say that, hey, if you guys were in a situation where the people around you were like building you up and believing in you and believing in, even if you didn't believe in yourself, right? How many instances in your life where maybe you didn't believe in yourself, but someone else did, and that was the difference? Sometimes that's all it takes, right? Like sometimes it's just how the mind works, the psychology. Like, man, like that person believes in me. I don't want to let them down. I don't want, like, if they believe in me, that person believes in me, then they must see something in myself that I don't. You know what I mean? So that's what we're striving towards. We're striving towards the goal of being able to talk about Trey Lance's QB1. We can't even talk about Trey Lance's QB1. That's the sad part. I love you too, my guy. Play Trey. Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see what happens. Why do you think Trey has so many haters? I don't know. Because the 49er fan base breeds dysfunction? I don't know. I'm trying to think, when Kaepernick was drafted behind Alex Smith, again, much different situation. Kaepernick was a second-round draft pick. They didn't trade up the world to go get him. I don't know. Oh, the Jedi says, you know why. I know why. Why? I honestly don't know. I don't know why so many people hate a 21-year-old kid. I don't view football also through the I would say that I don't view football through the average fan's lens. I look at it from so many different aspects that I know a lot of, and I'm not talking about you guys, but a lot of people, they just don't look at football that way. It's very cut and dry. No context needed. There's so much nuance in football. It's unbelievable. But I don't know. Do you guys know why? The fan base will never be united and agree on the same thing. Hey, we all like Jimmy Garoppolo for about 5 weeks in a row and an off season. sort of, until we got paid. Then everything changed. So there have been times. It hasn't been. It's been a while though. It's been a while. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, and that's part of it. Like people, myself included. You see that. You see the value. Football is a lot about value. All that kind of stuff. Like, so I understand there's so much nuance to this conversation. Nuance in that building, nuance to the fan base, nuance to the players. Like, it's a lot. It's so much to wrap your head around, and I don't think a good portion of people approach it that way, and so that's why they just never see eye to eye. I don't know. How do you guys think Trey? Clearly, I've been talking out my rear end about Trey for a while now. I think, stripping it down, I'm concerned about his development. Yes, that's true. I'm not concerned about his talent. There's two different things. We talk about arm strength. We talk about measurables. We talk about intangible traits. I'm not worried about his traits. I think he has all the traits of being a top 5 quarterback. But I understand that football is just much more than physical tools, especially at the NFL. If anything, at the NFL level, it's more about intangible tools, mental processing, handling adversity, being a leader. Those are huge things in the NFL. So that's all this conversation stems down to. Just again, I forget who said it. Word of the day, development. That's what we're talking about. That's essentially what we're talking about. Agreed. Again, time is our friend here. Time is our friend. More time, the better. So we can't hold this kid to a standard of, oh well, if he's not going to come in and be Patrick Mahomes next year, then he's a bust. See, that's the other part of it. That's the other part of it is expectations and unrealistic expectations. Are people going to be upset with Trey if he doesn't look like Patrick Mahomes in year 2? Because what do we hear about? What do we hear about all offseason? We heard about, oh, well, it's the Alex Smith, Patty Mahomes 2.0. I don't know. Again, I will say this. That there are plenty of players, Tyreek Hill included, who literally said they thought Patrick Mahomes was trash. Something to keep in mind. I just reminded myself, to be honest. In that rookie year, they've came out after the fact. Tyreek Hill, I think, had the most, the biggest quote. Like, we thought Patrick was trash. Like, we thought he was garbage. Because why? Because he came from Cliff Kingsbury's system at Texas Tech, running the air raid. And the air raid is a poverty scheme for simple-minded folk. So that transition from the NFL, massive. Not because of talent. The talent was always there. Patty Mahomes, that's why I call prospects that I think are going to be future Hall of Famers demigods. So like Deshaun Watson, demigod. I was like, coming out of Clemson, I was like, he is a demigod. He is going to take over the NFL when he comes into the NFL, when he gets a shot. Patrick Mahomes, for me, I tagged him with demigod in training because he had every physical tool imaginable, but he was coming out of the air raid. And I've covered the NFL long enough to understand that if you're coming from a air raid scheme, you're coming from a spread, Paxton Lynch comes to mind, it doesn't translate, and or it takes time to translate. So Patty was a demigod in training. I would say Trey is a demigod in training. He has the same elite traits, but how will he develop? That's it. That's the only question that we have in mind. So I think Trey Lance is demigod status, but he's demigod in training status. And demigod in training status can go two ways. It could go good or it could go bad. There are both ranges of outcomes still exist. That's why they have a pending tag, because we see the upside, the ceiling. You hear that all the time, right? Oh, highest ceiling in the entire draft. Okay. But he's also got a floor. And the floor is also something to just be aware of. And when you're a 19-year-old kid who didn't play in 2020, got drafted as a number 3 overall pick in 2021, went into probably the most talk. I don't know about you guys, but the 49ers quarterback situation was probably one of the most toxic storylines across any team in the NFL. Would you agree? Would you agree that the toxicity levels that surrounded the 49ers quarterback room arguably transcended the entire NFL? Oh, one more like to 100. I haven't even been checking on likes. Smash that like button real quick. We've been in here for a minute. I'm going on 2 hours and 30 minutes. I'm liking this conversation though. I'm liking the conversation though. It's this is nuance. Like what we're talking about, like we're talking a lot of nuance. We're talking a lot of in between the lines. We're talking a little we're getting deep now. This isn't your average conversation. Oh, we did it. Let's go. Squad. We see you. James Vega says, does Kyle go easy on Trey in the beginning of the season and then starts to ramp it up at halfway point? What does Kyle? Well, Trey talked about this. Trey talked about this in that interview. So if you want to, again, we're gonna be cutting this here in a couple minutes. But if you haven't watched it, go watch that Trey Lance interview. He talked about Kyle laying into him, and Kyle, to me, again, he's very specific in what he wants, and if you don't do what he wants, I haven't been on the opposite side of it, so I can't say like I've heard the way Kyle communicates to his quarterback. I've seen it. I've seen Kyle go hard on these quarterbacks, whether it was Jimmy or Trey. Trey talked about it. Trey talked about it, man. And hey, if you've had an intense dad before, there's some anxiety that can come from not wanting to upset your intense dad because you don't want to get yelled at. And again, development, part of it. But I don't think he does go easy on Trey because he didn't. And that's always been my thing with Kyle. I don't think Kyle ever wanted a rookie. I don't think he did. I think Kyle wanted Deshaun Watson. Kyle, that didn't work out. Then I think he wanted Stafford. That didn't work out. Then I think he wanted Rodgers. That didn't work out. Then I think he wanted Darnold. That didn't work out. Then I think he wanted Flacco. That didn't work out. You know what I mean? I don't think Kyle, in his heart of heart, wants a kid. I don't think he wants to hold a kid's hand through that process. I said that from the jump. They grab the kid. Okay, well, you grab the kid. Well, now you got to nurture the kid. Like treating, Jimmy Garoppolo a certain way as a 10-year NFL veteran and taking that same exact energy and treating a 21-year-old kid in his first NFL start, in his second NFL start, wildly different. Wildly different. Again, I'm a big developmental guy, big psychology guy, big. So these are all things that I always look at. I got 3 little ones of my own too. So just looking at it all, I'm just saying. What does Kyle expect to see from Trey in his second season, first season as full-time? When they talk about Trey, they talk about he has the skill set. When everyone talks about Trey, they talk about the skill set and how it exists and how it's there. It's the intangible of learning, right? That's what they keep talking about. But to be fair, Deebo Samuel talked the same way about Kyle Shanahan. Deebo Samuel talked the same exact way about, again, we talk about the doghouse too. Why there's a doghouse? I'm just saying there's a million ways to develop athletes. Clearly, who am I to be telling Kyle? Kyle's been doing this his whole life. Like, who am I? And I don't even have the proper context. I'm not. It would be different if I was sitting next to Trey and Jimmy and like sitting in those meeting rooms. I'm on the practice field. Then my I would have a much better like concrete opinion. Whereas right now we're just cycling through possible situations. But I think what Kyle's going to expect is he's going to expect a guy to step up, take care of business, be a man, be a veteran. That's honestly what I expect. But again, it can be dangerous to expect that from a kid, right? So I'm just saying. Good questions, though. Great question, James. What's good, Don? The GOAT. Don, I've been going off for a minute. He said y'all can have Goff. Hey, I'd take Goff as a nice backup to Trey. I would be one of the best backups in the league. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I think it's a project. I think Trey's still a project. I think Trey's still a project. So we'll see. He said, "No, you did it." Hey, man, I'll take Goffy as a backup. Let's go. Goff on the Niners. Let's go. I'll take it. He's probably way too expensive. They'd have to cut his ass first. Yeah, but dude, Goff probably I don't know. Again, Goff, very similar screwed up circumstance. Did you guys watch I think it was the Amazon Prime series where they follow the team week in, week out. Do you guys remember? Did you guys watch that? When we talk about stunting a quarterback's development, his mental growth, and his mental process, do you guys remember that? Like, I I do. I watched that whole season play out. I watched when Case Keenum was the starter. Goff was just he was the backup, and then one day, I think it was also too after a win, they just came in and they're like, "Goff, you're starting." He was like, "What?" And like literally got thrown into the fire. Like that's how you can mess up some kids' development. Now, there are a lot of people, especially at elite level, where that doesn't affect them and they just plow right through it. Good for them. Yeah, with Fisher. Fisher came in one day. I think they were doing decent too, and they were winning, and the team was vibing off Case Keenum, and they had a ownership decision come down and say, start the kid. They literally started a kid when he wasn't ready. So it goes both ways, man. It goes both ways. So, um, Trey Lance a game manager in his first year? I don't think so. I think Trey Lance, obviously I don't think it's going to be a situation where we like say, "Hey, Trey, we need you to throw 30 times a game." Um, I still think they're going to be a run first team. I still again, when we've seen uh at least Trey start 4 quarters of as a starting quarterback. We saw him for 2 against Seattle, but he got thrown in against Seattle. Again, not a great time to develop someone. Just get thrown in at halftime. Um, again, mismanagement comes to mind. You got a kid just running scout team, not being developed really as a starter, and then Jimmy gets hurt in the first half against the Seattle Seahawks, and they're like, "All right, Trey, go in and try to play, I guess. See what happens." Um, so we'll see, man. I agree with Jason here. I think we open it up a lot, but I also at in a smart way. Um, in a smart way. Still run the football, predicate play action. I think they're still going to do some of those quarterback runs, but again, they got away from that. I think Kyle has like this, what he thinks the offense needs to be with Trey, and it was much different than what it was with Jimmy. And we saw that in the Texans game. That offensive performance from Kyle Shanahan in that first half against the Texans was so bad. It was just not. It wasn't good. Like I'm like, what are we doing? Like why? Like why? Just run your offense. Just run your offense. What are we doing? And then they came out in the second half and they completely switched back to kind of their normal offense, and they started moving the ball. Like it's again, I'm not in the building. I don't have context. I don't know. Um, I don't know there's so many more reasons that go into this than I can even fathom. Um, it's going to be interesting, but we're going to spend a lot of time talking about quarterbacks. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about other things. Clearly, the fan base is charged up to talk about potential veteran quarterbacks coming in. Now, it's what's wild. What's wild is I think you get a good sense, man, of with that Tom Brady thing come out, you kind of got a really good sense of where this fan base truly sits on Trey Lance. And they're not confident. We are not a confident group. Not a confident group. And here is another example showing that. Give me 1 second so I can get it up. But of course, you guys know I do the polls on YouTube, and they get pretty good traction. This particular poll right here is, should the 49ers bring in a veteran quarterback to start over Trey Lance in 2022? 24% said yes, Tom Brady. 25% said yes, Aaron Rodgers. There's 53,000 votes on this thing. I mean, I think that's a pretty good sample size. I'm going to say 53K votes is a pretty good sample size. And the fact that nearly 50% would rather have a veteran come in than just start and develop Trey Lance is this to me kind of, I think, really put into context I think where we're at with this quarterback situation across the fan base. I don't think this fan base knows. I don't think they know. They don't know what they want. They want a Super Bowl. So I think overall, I think a lot of that is driving the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. They want a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? They want the ring. I want the ring too. But I also don't want to destroy the kid in hopes of getting a ring, if that makes sense. So it's nuanced. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But hey, it's gonna be a long year. I'm headed towards 3 hours. I got to get off here. I can't believe I've been speaking for this long. I blame the coffee that I have or took. The coffee got me charged up today. I guess, to talk for 3 hours. So, hey, if you stayed for the entire episode, you get 2 cookies today. 2 cookies today if you stayed for the entire episode. Congratulations. That's wild if you stayed for the entire episode. I think there are a couple people that maybe did. James, it's really 3 hours. Doesn't seem that long. And again, this is exactly what I was talking about. This is the 49% of people who voted for Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. They don't care about development. You know what I mean? They don't care. That it's not a thought process. Like developing players, like they don't care. They care about production on the field. They care about, are you going to win me a championship or you're not going to win me a championship? So again, I think that's a perfect this is a perfect comment to explain the 49% of people who would kind of disregard the actual quarterback that they have on their roster to chase a championship. So those are the differentiating thought processes here. Again, I think one of the original questions was, why is our fan base so split? This comment tells you why. Because this comment goes against developing a young kid. So that's the split. Is people want a championship and they will literally say, F the kid. Championships is all that matters. So they will potentially risk, in their minds, trading the first round picks, missing out on the talent that they could have had at 12, and just disregard the kid and go with A-Rod or go with Brady. Imagine Tom Brady does get traded to the 49ers. They do give up assets to get Tom Brady, and Tom Brady falls off a cliff at the age of 45. Could you imagine that? I'm just saying, it's a range of outcome. We talk about ranges of out. Could you imagine the drama that then would follow Trey versus Brady? Because this fan base. That will happen. And then a potential outcome of Brady falling off the cliff at 45. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't think people have even thought that far ahead. They just like, oh, it's Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. Not to mention he's 45 and literally just retired. Like, could you imagine? Oh, that would be terrifying. That would be terrifying. And then guess what? 3 year, like again, the environment of doubt that bringing Brady in would create for Trey, because it's again a backhanded way of saying we don't believe in you. And then even though it's Brady, it's yeah, I get it. It's a GOAT. Deebo Samuel talked about it today, so that would be a meh crazy if that happened, but it still affects one person, and that person is Trey. Um, so I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Would be funny. No one talks about that. When they talk about Brady, they don't talk about the actual possibility that he's 45 years old. Like, and hey, maybe next year actually is the year that the fountain of youth shuts off. And would you oh God, I don't want that. That is a range of outcome that scares the hell out of me. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, what a wild episode that turned out to be. We talked about a lot of stuff. Lots of stuff. We got kind of deep on certain topics. We got into a lot of developmental conversations, all that stuff. So, it was an interesting episode. But again, if you stayed now almost 3 hours, congratulations. Congratulations. Let's go. 2 cookies for Jago Crazy. That boy stacking cookies left and right. We see you. Let's go. Again, dude, if you sat through this whole thing, amazing job. Amazing job. Jago Crazy. I'm pretty absolutely sure he is here the whole time. Justin, my boy, always rocking with me. Man, good times. Good times, everyone. And we're going to keep talking about it. It's going to be a big point of emphasis this year. But I hope you guys, you get the cookies too. Go another hour. Hell no. I'm done. Shout out the squad. Appreciate you guys, man. I always do. Again, I'm having a conversation with you guys. Like, I'm not just like speaking into the camera and that's it. Like, so we've been having a conversation for about 2.5 hours, and I appreciate your guys' feedback. Again, we don't have to agree. I think that's one of the cool things about, I think, what I'm trying to foster here, at least in this community, is although we're the sourdough squad and we vibe at high levels, we also don't have to agree on everything. We can say respectfully, well, have you thought about it like this? Or did maybe this is another way to look at it? I welcome that with open arms. So again, we don't have to be a group that just has to agree on everything the same way. I actually would prefer it not to be that way. I appreciate when you guys say, well, hey, look at this, or well, did you look at this? Because there will be some times when I don't. And you're like, well, that's a great point. So I'm loving that we can have a respectful conversation, because we know it's a divisive topic, and it's been a divisive topic for better part of 2 years. So I think that's one of the coolest things about hanging out with you guys, is that we can talk about it. We can talk about it. It's more entertaining when conflict is in hand. Facts. Facts. And we get there. We do get there sometimes. We do get there sometimes. Ooh. James tore the bicep at work the other day. Ooh. Owie. I've never done that, but I would never want to do that. I hope you get better, man. That hurt. Ouch. I've never torn a muscle like that. I don't want to imagine it. I don't want to imagine it. But hey man, appreciate you guys. Appreciate the vibes as always. And we'll be back. I'm gonna definitely take the weekend off. Jesus knows. The boys are saying get better. Want you to get better, James. So hopefully that gets better for you. So so we'll see. But I'm absolutely taking the weekend off. So I will see you guys unless I will say this. Unless something crazy happens, which it could. It could. You'll see me on here something crazy happens. But barring anything crazy, I will see you guys on Monday. And I guarantee you we'll have plenty to talk about on Monday. So appreciate you guys as always. Good conversation today. We got kind of deep into the weeds, but I appreciate you. Nuance, a lot of good stuff. Shout out to Sourdough Squad. We'll see you guys Monday. Have a great weekend. Sourdough Squad is still undefeated.